So I race with super shoes. Um, the first time, I guess I was a little bit of a late adopter, but only because they weren't really available for a while. Super shoes, I think they came out in something like 2016 or 2017, along with that Breaking 2 project. But I actually couldn't get my hands on any until maybe 2 years after they came out. So the first time I was able to get my hands on a pair of Nike Vaporfly Next Percent, so I never even got my hands on the 4% because they would just enter the shops and just be completely wiped out in seconds. Um, anyway, so I bought these shoes in Toronto the day before I ran the marathon because I walked into this little shop called Black Toe Running, and they had a pair, and they were my size. They might have been a half size too big. Anyway, but I decided they were my size. I bought them, and I walked back to my hotel about 1 kilometer in them. And the next day, I was like, this is a great idea. I'm gonna run the whole marathon. And so I ended up actually running a PB. And of course, I was happy because it had been about 5 years since I managed a marathon PB. But part of me also wondered how much of the PB was due to the shoes. I later heard Alex Hutchinson speak in one of the podcasts that he was on, and he was saying how he resisted super shoes for years because he didn't really know what the result means after you get it. So, you run faster, but then do you run faster because your fitness is better, or are you running faster because you wore these shoes that are like magic? Anyway, today's author hasn't switched to super shoes at all, uh, according to an excerpt from his book, How to Run, a DIY Guide for Romantics. Maybe we'll find out what keeps him on the fence. Hi, and welcome to the Running Book Reviews podcast, where we review books written for runners, about runners, and by runners to help you decide if you'd like to read the book for yourself. We also hope that listening to us chat about running can help keep you motivated about your own running, or maybe inspire you to try something new. My name is Liz, and with my co-host Alan, we're going to talk with author Scott Parker about his book, How to Run, a DIY Guide for Romantics.
This is usually the point where I give an overview of the book, but giving an overview of this book is a bit complicated. It's kind of like giving an overview of what you think that running is. Well, I don't know who you are, so I can't tell you what you think that running is, or where you should start, or what kind of running, what does running really mean to you when we talk about running? Oh, that sounds like another book, doesn't it? I've come across a book called that. And I think the book's also a bit misnamed because it doesn't really teach you how to run. I think you likely need to already be a runner and have some opinions about running for it to actually speak to you. But, we'll dive into all of that. The short answer on the overview of the book is that it's a collection of short essays and poems about running. Most of them express Scott's love for running, but there are also a few rants in there for those that like some controversy. Or is it controversy?
It's controversy.
I'm sure it's controversy. But
No, it can't be that.
okay, so let me tell you a little bit about Scott. Scott F. Parker. That sounds very formal with an F in the middle. We'll find out what the F stands for maybe. Is the author of The Joy of Running, Running Qua Running, Run for Your Life, a Manifesto, Running After Prefontaine, and the picture book Run for Fun, as well as the book we're talking about today, of course. His work has appeared in Runner's World, Running Times, and many other publications, and he writes the On the Run series for Sport Literate. Welcome to the podcast, Scott.
Thank you. I'm a listener to the show, so it's a real pleasure to be on here with you guys.
Oh, that's excellent. It's good stuff. Well, now you're in amongst
Now you're both. I
yeah,
know, the elite.
you're in amongst the elite. Yeah, that makes you and Matt Fitzgerald. He's the other author that we cover. He seems to be on every other week.
Yeah. He's a bit more prolific than I am.
Okay, yeah, well,
Definitely writes a lot of books, that's
he's
for
more
sure.
prolific than anybody
Yeah,
in the running world.
never ever
Um,
runs out of topics to write about. So I guess the first question is, well, okay, so we usually ask as the first question, how did you decide to write this book? But you've actually written like a few short books that I think it was in one of our chats, you referred to them as projects and not really books. So, how did you start these projects and where do you get the ideas and how did you decide to write this one?
Yeah, well, I'll start with this one just because it's freshest. So I didn't decide to write it. As Alan mentioned, it's this collection of essays and poems. And when I decided, oh, there might be a book here, is after I wrote the title essay, How to Run. As soon as I wrote that, I thought, oh, I wonder if like I could just kind of see it falling into place. And I was like, that's the title of the book. And then I went back through things I had written over the previous, 5 years or so, and just started arranging them and deciding which ones belong together. So it was a book that was written before I even had the idea to write it, is what I'm saying.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. And then at the point I had, just committed myself to the idea, then there were one or two more that I worked on toward the end. But for all intents and purposes, the bulk of it was there. The other ones came about similarly in different, but similarly haphazard kinds of ways, which I can go into, but it would be taking them book by book because they're all, each one has
Kind
a
of
kind of
different.
unusual origin story.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
Let's first focus on this one then. I guess our question is, where did the title come from?
Yeah, well, I mean, this goes to Alan's intro and the kind of, if anyone read the title and then picked up the book and said, "Oh, I'm going to learn how to run," they would be quite disappointed, I imagine. The subtitle is supposed to indicate something
The nature of it.
the nature of the project. But the title is largely, well, I shouldn't say largely. It's about half tongue in cheek. And the tongue in cheek part is the part of, unlike most running books, I have nothing to tell you about running. I'm not an expert on running. I know nothing about running. In fact, I want to know less about running. Then the other half of it is, well, but I go running a lot. And I keep reading these books about running and I keep writing about running. And running is one of the most important things in my life. And so how to, reconcile those contradictory forces. And I think, where they find some balance, I think in my running experience and hopefully in the book, is around paying attention to the subjective experience of running, which I think is something that gets neglected in a lot of the running literature. We tend to put a premium on accomplishment, achievement, personal successes, all those things, which I think there's a place for all those. And I have my own stories around those themes as well. But the thing that gets me running every day is not, well, maybe I can get a good time. Maybe I can, whatever, achieve whatever goal might be. The reason I go running every day is because it makes my days better. And that's what I want to celebrate.
So, yeah, that subjective part about running. So I'm guessing maybe you could tell us when you started running, but I find that because I started running before there was GPS on your wrist, and it's interesting. Like we did have workouts for sure. Like we would have workouts on the track where you know the distance and you time your laps, so you have a goal pace for your lap, and you do have some feedback and stuff to know if you're getting fitter or whatever. But the bulk of our runs would be just runs, and um, you would either, well, I used to run by time, so my coach would prescribe us a number of minutes per week, not a number of kilometers, because that was easy to track because we had watches. The only way you would know the number of kilometers is if you did the same route and you went out to drive it, which is like something that I had done like prior to that because I'd prepared for my first marathon on my own. And so I used to live in a place that basically down the street the farmland started, and so farm blocks are really really big, and so I would have this really big square that I went out to drive, and it was 20 kilometers, so I knew like that was my long run. And I would always do the same route, but otherwise, like when you don't really have a purpose for knowing how far you're going. Like you would just run. And so now I find a lot of people that are starting to run now, it seems like first they get hooked on the gamification of the run. And then later they realize that they like to run, like they like the feeling of running. And so, I mean, I guess like it's good and bad because it's good because it maybe brings people into the sport that wouldn't otherwise have tried it or maybe wouldn't have stuck to it long enough. But then it's bad because, then you have people that like,
People are locked out from the essence of running because they're watching their Garmin.
and also they get very worried about what their Garmin tells them or like if they're, 3 seconds per K too slow, which like, really 3 seconds per K is like nothing. If you were to measure how far you run in 3 seconds, it's like, what is it, like 5 meters or 10 meters or something? It's really, well, maybe it's more like 10 meters, but over a kilometer, like that's not very much. It's not really like a significant difference in time. And so maybe you could tell us like when did you start running? How did you start running? And did you time your runs? Did you have GPS?
Yeah, first I want to just say something in response to what you said there, Liz. I was in Eugene this weekend for the US Championships. I went on Saturday.
Oh, that's
Cool.
exciting.
It was
Yeah.
great. I'm happy to talk about that too. But I was in town and I saw a guy out for a run and he was running real hard and he got to the end of the block and he looked at his watch and then he kind of you could see like a little panic on his face and then he turned around and he ran about 4 more seconds and then he looked at his watch again and then he pressed a button and stopped and you could just see it was like, oh, he was at 0.99, right, and he had to get to my whatever.
Yeah.
And it just the absurdity of that was there for anyone to witness, I thought.
It's so common though.
It's so common, but it never stops being shocking to me. It never stops making me want to write my next rant, let's say. But so how did I start running? I always think of this moment that where I was really struck as a kid by the Seoul Olympics, and particularly the person of Carl Lewis. I think Liz, if we might be the same age, so I don't know if you remember that, and if you were like a big Ben Johnson guy back then, but
No, like so when was
Everybody at
that?
the
When
time,
is
wherever they
so
were in the world, knew about the rivalry between Johnson and Lewis and
Yeah, I think
the
I
doping
vaguely knew,
scandal.
but I didn't follow it so much because because I can't remember the Seoul Olympics, like what year that would have been, but um
88.
oh, 88. Yeah, so I only started running in 94-ish. But I do remember hearing about like I would watch the Olympics, but I would watch the gymnastics. That was my thing. As a kid, I loved the gymnastics, and then I would go in the backyard and I would try and do like some of the things that they did. I wanted to do gymnastics so badly as a kid, but my parents didn't have money for it, so I never did. But I loved to, yeah. But yeah, when you watch the Olympics.
That's the same kind of thing that I had with track is I thought, oh my gosh, like I need to be Carl Lewis. I like show me where the track is. I want to go.
That's amazing.
But there wasn't a track program that either I could sign up for or that I knew about. It wasn't in the schools in those years. And so, I just did other sports and track kind of was this memory I had, but it was not something that I ever got to participate in. And then junior year of high school, I decided that I was going to quit the soccer or going, after sophomore year, going into junior, I thought, okay, I'm going to quit soccer and I'm going to switch to cross country. And I did. And that was, one of the great decisions I've made. And that was really my introduction to running, period. I had not really run before. I'd run on my own, I'd run a few miles around the neighborhood a couple times a year or something. But that was the first time I did it in any kind of organized or regular way. And maybe because cross country is such a great sport, maybe because it was so fun socially, whatever, like I just had fun with it. And then, ran again senior year. And then from there, running's place in my life just kind of slowly and then suddenly expanded. So I started going up in distance. I started running throughout the year, but it was a very organic and kind of easy transition to where running became something in my life that I sort of relied on for a kind of mental clarity or something like sanity even. It was just, so grounding, and I felt so connected to myself and my body, and uh, you know, it's a love story. I don't
Yeah.
know what else to
But
say.
but you were a competitive runner at college?
Yeah. So for those 2 years of high school cross country,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Mhm.
that didn't, let's say, contaminate or lessen your love affair with running. Because you
No.
see, particularly with the American girls who came through the college and were thrashing themselves to try and make their way through the college system. You see a lot of them falling out of love with running.
Yeah, I wonder in retrospect how much that has to do with the kind of coach we had. I didn't have a strict coach. I didn't have a coach who made,
Hmm.
he wasn't gonna shout at you or put pressure on you or isolate
Yeah,
you and say, here are all your flaws and here's what
yeah.
you need to do. It was like a group effort, and it was we probably would have been more competitive if we were training more seriously. There was a kind of casualness to it that had a lot to do with the culture at our school and the
Hmm.
personalities of the kids who were in the program at the time. In that era, at least at our school, it wasn't cool to work hard at anything. It wasn't cool to care about
Too much.
sports in general, let alone a dorky sport like cross country. So there was no status in it. But, had those things been different, and they have become different since then, uh, a lot of schools, in my school in particular, we might have been fat, we would have been faster. And, then the question you're asking is, well, would I have still loved it or to
Mm,
become a thing? You have to work hard, and then you have to work harder, and then you're never working hard enough. And
Hmm.
is your weight right? Is your diet right? And it becomes your whole life. And I think, you at some point cross a line, and it's hard to tell where that line is until you've crossed it. And I probably got nowhere near that line. It's true. So the open question for me is, yeah, like how much potential have I left on the table? And then how much regret does that cause me?
I mean, I don't know. I think since we're talking about this, like I would say in terms of how much potential did you leave on the table, probably none. I think that probably um
You've won
it was an
exactly the same number of
advantage.
Olympic gold medals as you were going to.
Yeah,
Right.
because the problem is that and I think like so I did a coaching course. Now what they do is they're trying to for running especially because running is like a sport that you don't peak until so much later in life. It's the theory is that actually you don't even like really train or specialize until maybe only like boys age, I don't know. I'm gonna say
12.
15. I don't remember the exact number. No, 12 is still for boys is young. I think girls is because they stop maturing earlier than boys physically. So I think like girls, like you start like training to train maybe around 13, 14, but I think boys it's like 14, 15, something like that. And like train to train just means like, it being more structured and learning why you're doing things and like running intervals and those kinds of things. But even in the in the young years, because I coached the son and daughter of a friend of mine for a while, but I say coached, but really like we would go maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks to the track and we would do intervals together. He was running in school, but the thing is that in school at that age, they're forced to do like a pentathlon type of event for competition. They don't actually compete in a discipline like he was good at. the running part. So he liked like the 800. He wasn't good at sprints, so he didn't really like those, but he had to do them because if you're competing, you're doing like sprint 800 and then you're doing like some of the jumping things like long jump, high jump, I think. So they learn like all of the different things because the theory is that it's not the age to specialize and actually it should still be fun and experimental. So all that to say is I think that probably without knowing it, you were doing it right because, or your coach was doing it right, because the problem is that if you specialize too young, well, then you're not developing some of the other athletic qualities that you would if you were doing different activities that require, different planes of motion, whereas running is just like, forward. So anyway, that's kind of the theory right now. If you take any kind of coaching course here in Canada for runners through the Athletics Canada. So I don't know. I think you did it right. I think it was probably an advantage that your coach wasn't putting any pressure. And also, I think it was Matt's last book. In his book, he says the first step is to love the sport, and then um,
Be
you'll be able to
motivated.
train hard at it. But you probably won't train hard if you don't love it. So in a way, also your coach at the time, he let you develop the love for it, and so then later you could decide if you wanted it to be hard or not. Whereas I think if he had just forced it to be hard, then maybe you wouldn't love it.
Yeah, that sounds right. And thank you for giving me the permission to feel better about my past.
Yeah. Yeah, I was kind of thinking about
Congratulations
that too.
on your
Yeah.
0 gold medals. Um, yeah, while we're talking about children, I could kick into a question that I wrote down while I read your book, or was reading a book, which was some of your articles and poems reference running either with your one of your children as a young boy, I guess that they're still young, or in fact reference articles running feeling childlike feeling that you can have while you're running in terms of just the play. Do you think there's an essential childlike quality to running? Is that, a big thing in running?
I think it is in the kind of running that I'm most interested in. And it's interesting because if you think about running, at least, as most people probably experience it, you think about, well, that's hard because I'm going to be doing all this work and it's, my legs are going to hurt and my
Mm,
lungs might hurt. It's pain. We're talking about pain. Like, why would you do that? And yet, those of us who do it know that the pain is there at least some of the time, but it's almost incidental to what really matters or what really feels good about it. And that there is this sense of joy that maybe you don't always experience it, but you experience it regularly enough that it's enough to make up for the times you don't experience it. So you want to get out there again. And I think, for kids, it's kind of, I don't know, they just run and they just look happy when they're running. And if they get tired, maybe they stop, but then they start back up again. And it seems to me like there's a wisdom in that. And the wisdom is not we should run so that our running looks like children running, but the wisdom is to listen to your body and to be able to express freedom of movement, a kind of creative sense of play, and an attentiveness to experience. If I'm running regularly and then I miss a day or let's say 2 days, my body starts saying like, "Hey, come on, don't forget about me. This is how we need to." I'm jumping pronouns all over, like you, we, I, but
that's
it
okay.
gets
It's
it gets
conversation.
metaphysical. It gets
Yeah,
metaphysical in there,
yeah.
but I find myself feeling almost dishonest. Like I'm being dishonest in the way I'm living my life if I'm not running regularly enough, because this is what I do, and this is therefore who I am. Right. And I think kids know that it expresses itself differently in children, but I think
Hmm.
they know that and they don't have so many ideas that interfere with what the body is requesting.
Yeah. That's true. They just do it.
You know, like a kid never gets tired as long as the kid is having fun, right? When the kid starts saying I'm tired, it's because their attention has slipped or they've become bored. Yeah.
Yeah, Liz has actually worked out how to channel this um, when she's trail running because trail running does not come as a natural joy to Liz. So when she,
No,
so correct?
definitely not.
Am I right?
Yep, absolutely. You
So
know
what
me
she
too
does
well.
is she waits until she gets to a downhill.
Oh yeah.
And then
Yeah, a
what do
lot
you
of
do?
them.
And then what do you do, Liz, when you get to the downhill?
Well, actually, it's just, it happens in my head and it just comes out of my mouth, but I'm just like, I just want to say wee downhill because because usually I'll have been trudging up a mountain or something, walking for like the longest time, usually way behind you and my husband, who are like way up like in a different time zone than I am. And then yeah, and then I finally you know, get to just let loose and run after that. Yeah, after all that walking. So, yeah, it just feels
So we
like
run down
fun.
the hill and we go wee, and usually put
Yeah.
our arms out as well into an aeroplane. Uh, we probably look like complete lunatics to
Yeah,
serious
probably. You probably want
hikers
to
out
lock
there.
us up, but
No, I think any runner gets it.
Um, so actually, since we're on the topic of trails, let's just talk about this because so you wrote a rant about people running in the trails with headphones. Okay, so I don't really run much trails because, well, we just talked about it. It's not my favorite running. I really like long, flat, open road is really my thing. I
In a
just feel
straight
like
line
in a straight line, I can
with
just,
no variation.
Okay, make it sound so boring, but like I just feel free and uninhibited and just like uh, I can stay inside my head instead of having to pay so much attention to the outside. Whereas for me, trail running is just like sometimes I'm just mentally tired. Like I'll run an hour on the road, no problem. I run an hour in the trails and I'm exhausted after because I'm just mentally tired because I'm always like trying to figure out where to put my feet. What's that rustling sound? If we're somewhere where there's bears, like you gotta pay attention. I can't just be inside my own head. And that's, I think, my preferred way to run is to run when I'm inside my own head. And so on the road, I just feel like especially if it's like a straight road, I just can see in the
It's really
distance and it's
boring.
like no, but it's just no, it's fun because you can just go and you see like that there's no end point in sight, which for you is probably yeah, not a lot of fun. Actually, my husband Andre, he thinks that's his nightmare. He's like I have to go all that way, like all the way down there, and there's no end in sight. He really loves the twists and turns of the trails. For me, that just makes me dizzy. Like I love just the endless monotony of
Back to headphones.
so okay, back to headphones. So when I run on the road, like not when I'm running, if I'm running with someone or I'm doing a workout, I usually don't wear music or don't wear headphones. But if I'm running by myself, an easy run, I love to have headphones. But you wrote a rant about headphones, and so I feel a little bit judged.
Oh, well,
Except your headphone wearers were in the trails, probably blocking the single track and not moving because they can't hear the person behind them. So what do you think about people who run on the roads with headphones?
okay. Well, I should just as a kind of, I guess, apology to you, perhaps I should say, there's a rhetorical effect where it's like the rant is sort of partly for show, right? There's an excess to it um, that hopefully makes for lively reading, but I take no personal offense. So uh, to each her own on some level. But what I guess the case I would make is that I would just feel like if I were running with headphones, that I were denying myself an important part of the experience of running. And this is sort of historical, just given the era we live in. I don't know if I would have had such a strong opinion even 10, but certainly 20 years ago. Just that we have so little time now when we're free of our devices. And, running is a really good opportunity for that. I mean, that's it. That's what it comes down to. And so why deny yourself that? I have presumably thoughts in my mind. And if I don't give them room to express themselves, when will they? If I'm not running or I'm not in the shower, like how many places are there when I'm away from a phone, when I'm away from earbuds, when I'm away from all these
Yeah.
things, and not many. And
Yeah.
I just want to
If you're
protect
if you're
those
having an
spaces.
MRI, if you're
If
having
I'm
an
had Yes, and
MRI,
I have had woefully few MRIs, so it
Yeah,
doesn't
me
leave me
too.
much. Yeah, and so I really want to protect those spaces just for the sake of listening
yeah.
to my own thoughts. For surprising myself, for actually making discoveries about what I think about or what I notice or what I care about. So,
Actually,
if
that's,
if
yeah.
if someone wanted to run with headphones and then said, but I carve out another hour a day where I don't have any devices around, I'd say, okay, that gets the same job done to me.
Do you take caffeine when you run? Lots of people do because it's in gels and stuff. And caffeine's legal and it's been proven to work. There's actual science that shows that it improves your endurance running performance.
And there's anecdotal data from when you have your coffee in the morning and you go for a workout versus when you forgot to have your coffee or you didn't have time and you went for a workout and it was terrible.
And the trouble with coffee is there's a lot of liquid just to get your caffeine dose.
Yeah, so then you have to stop for the bathroom mid-workout. Very impractical. Which is where Caffeine Bullet comes in.
What's caffeine bullet, Liz?
It's a caffeine supplement. It's wrapped up like in a candy. So, and it tastes like candy. And you can get 100 milligrams or 85 milligrams, which is about a cup of coffee, but without the liquid.
So we've tried the mint flavor and the chocolate orange flavor, and they're both pretty yummy.
If you want to try them for yourself, we do have a 20% off discount code. So go to the link in the show notes and you can check out what Caffeine Bullet is and get your 20% discount.
Pretty generous.
It is pretty generous.
And we'll get a small benefit, so you're helping out the
Speaking of which, back to the podcast. So I think like for me, part of it is that I have a lot of thoughts all the time, and it's like sometimes those thoughts like they feel like a bit of a runaway freight train. So for me, it's like if I'm running without headphones and I'm by myself, so not like when I have a buddy and we're talking about something or whatever, sharing ideas or whatever it is that we might be doing. But when I'm just running by myself, I feel like there's nothing to sort of divert the freight train, and then also there's a lot of, well, like we live in the suburbs, like I don't live, sometimes there's traffic and there's people and I just feel like the headphones just feel like a little bit of a bubble where I can just like put myself in it and then just run and eventually like the thoughts slow down, like especially if it's, let's say something happened that day and um made me feel
stressed.
nervous or stressed or whatever. Like I kind of have a hard time just slowing that down. Like, my brain always goes to the worrier about everything kind of place. And I find that running with headphones, you turn on the music. I don't really even know that I necessarily notice the music later, because even sometimes like I've re-listened to podcasts that I listened to on a run, and then there will be sections that I don't remember listening to, and it's really because I think that all it does is that it just creates that sort of like other thing that will interrupt like whatever the thoughts are that I wanted to get rid of.
I have a
You know.
similar sort of reaction to treadmills.
I love
Like,
treadmills.
why would I waste a run by running it on a treadmill? Like, I got some leg energy and I could do it outside.
Alan judges me for running on the treadmill, but in all fairness, like the winter is really hard for me. So I just need sometimes to be warm and in my shorts and
Yeah,
t-shirt.
I don't judge you. I don't judge you. I tease you, maybe. Tease you
Mm,
No,
about
th
lots of
this is
things. I don't judge you about anything.
this is interesting because I'm with you. I would never run on a treadmill unless I had to. So the winters in Montana, we have some tough times too, and that's when I'll go get on a treadmill. But when I get on a treadmill, then yeah, the earbuds come with me.
Ah,
okay. Okay.
And it doesn't agree with what I was just saying earlier. But there's something that is like so insufferable about a treadmill that it's
hmm.
like I need every kind of
Need to lock it out.
yeah,
Mm.
I need everything, every escape that I can access.
That's interesting. I guess there's no wrong way to do it, but yeah, I love the treadmill in the winter because I mean I don't own one, so I have to go out of my way to go to a treadmill too, which means that I have to actually like it. But yeah, it's just I find that just having, even if it's like the two workouts a week, like I usually won't do any easy runs on a treadmill. I'll go outside for that. But if I can just get on a treadmill like twice a week where, you know, I'm indoors, not wearing three layers of everything, and I can actually move, and, just have the freedom to run fast, then I don't know. It just makes the winter more easy. And also, like, I feel like I get better quality of runs in that way because at least, like, the quality gets done on the treadmill where I have the freedom to move fast. Whereas outside, it's like, well, I'm wearing all the clothing. Sometimes you have to watch out that, you don't
For sure,
slip
the
or,
underfoot can be difficult. That's one of the most,
yeah, sometimes
the
the
toughest thing.
sidewalks are not plowed. So if you're running on the road, you have to jump out of the way when there's a car coming because, obviously you don't want to compete with a car.
I'm going to switch gears here because otherwise Liz feels so strongly about all the subjects we're talking about. We're never going to get to hear much from you, Scott. You wrote it. One of the things you wrote as an article in your book was about Galen Rupp and his long-time association with Alberto Salazar, and we all know what happened to Alberto Salazar. Rather than summarize the article, I'll just ask you the question: do you think Galen Rupp is a villain because of his association with Alberto Salazar, or do you think that he's a victim because of his association with Alberto Salazar?
Uh, I certainly lean more in the direction of victim. And the argument that I lay out there is it's pretty straightforward. It's just that Galen Rupp was still a young child and at a very impressionable age, and then this larger than life charismatic figure, the best American marathoner of all time, I think we would say at that point, um, comes into your life and picks you as this kind of chosen son sort of figure, and then grooms you through years of running and religious conversion, right? I don't think people talk about that, but I believe Salazar was instrumental in Rupp's conversion. If I have that wrong, I apologize, and I probably or maybe shouldn't even be bringing it up. But in any case, it's to speak to his the level of devotion that he seemed to show Salazar, and then
Hmm.
the way in which Salazar was seemingly able to exploit that for his Rupp's track successes at the cost of perhaps, all of this is so gray, given that Salazar was penalized for violating, you guys might know the language better than I can recall, but violating like the spirit of the sport with the doping stuff, even prior to the Kara Goucher revelations. Um, but none of his athletes were penalized. So if the coach is involved in cheating, who is that cheating benefiting? And, probably along with Mo Farah, Galen Rupp is the primary suspect
Hmm.
there. So yeah, it's a case of a kid and then later a man who was led astray. I think. And so the moral question is, at what point do you start to assign responsibility for that? And legally, we sort of say, well, you're a kid when you're 14, but when you're 18, now you're an adult and now you're responsible. And there needs to be a line probably for legal reasons. But if you just think about that experientially from Rup's side, that like that's a real slippery slope. That's a real big gray area. And so I'm quite forgiving of Rupp. To me, it's a kind of tragedy.
Yeah, I agree with that because especially after reading Kara Goucher's book, I mean, Kara was an adult. And even she, the relationship that she had with Alberto Salazar, because I guess he was just very good at creating those relationships with those few athletes that he just really liked, and I guess really cared
Yeah,
about in
he was
his
very
own
much a
way.
father figure, wasn't he? And
Yeah.
also the Oregon Project isolated all of the people away from external influences.
And Galen was so young when it started. I mean, I don't know, like you can only really fall back on the right and wrong that you learned when you were younger. And also he had no reason to doubt Alberto. I mean, if Alberto, we don't even know what he was being told. He was because even like Kara didn't know all the things that were going on until, she kind of put some pieces together, but nothing really. It's not like Alberto went out and said like, okay, we're gonna give you some doping substance, but you're not gonna tell anyone, and it's gonna be a very small quantity. Like he didn't do that. It sounds like it was really like
Everything we do is legal, you know.
experimented, and he was always saying, it's legal and these are vitamins. And so, why would any of his athletes think that it was anything else? Like you're not gonna be suspicious of every person that you meet, and if somebody's close to you, like all the more reason to trust them, right?
Yeah, I have a lot of sympathy for Rupp. And it's hard. Easy for me to say sitting here, but I would love it if at some point we get some kind of really honest accounting of that period in his life from him as he's moved into his post-Salazar years. At some point. I don't know if he owes that to us. It's his life, and I don't want to act like I can make claims upon his life, but I certainly would be interested to see how he thinks about that with the advantage of age.
Yeah. So, I guess we hinted at this at the beginning, but you also wrote about super shoes, and I mean, I guess I guess I already told my story about super shoes and how it's once you wear them, it's like it's I guess you no longer know what your times mean, if it means better fitness or not. But what do you like? Are you still resistant to the whole wearing anything with a
Um,
carbon fiber plate and special foam, or have you
yeah, I
since?
guess I'm habitually resistant, but I'm not ideologically resistant. I think what it comes down to is really the prevalence of them, right? Like once they become ubiquitous, then that's just what it now means to talk about a running shoe. And so, yeah,
Hmm.
if everyone's wearing the same shoes and everyone's playing by the same rules, whatever, right? I think the way that they were introduced by Nike, and to stick with Rupp for a minute, the way they were used in 2016 in Rio, that left a bad taste in my mouth. And so there was a period of just kind of, a sick feeling that attached itself to the carbon plate more broadly. But that's past. And so now it's kind of like, well, like, how much money do you want to spend on running shoes and why? And back to one of the themes of the book, if you're not really prioritizing the results in your running, then what do you gain by it? And I don't you might be able to tell me, given that, yeah, I've still never even worn a pair, but I don't see that
Potentially, if I could just interrupt you just quickly there to answer your question, potentially a feeling while you're running that feels wonderful and makes you feel like a child.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'm in. Um,
And
Yeah,
causes you to go, wee, um,
they definitely
you
are
know,
bouncy.
yeah,
because
yeah.
you
No,
because Liz and I are not going to win any races wearing them.
right. Yeah, I mean
I guess we
that's
might
interesting,
PR,
and I
but
think
that's only
that
meaningful to us.
that's the right line to take with me, which is, well, if you run for an hour in these shoes and it's just a little bit better of an experience than the hour you would have in the other shoes, then yeah, that sounds great. And you know, to the extent that people do that, I don't think I would have a word to say against it. But I just sense that people think, I guess Liz, to what you were saying earlier about, do you take credit in terms of your ability, or do you just assign that credit to the shoes? That the standard is really the time at the end of the race. And it feels good to see a lower number at the end of the race. Everyone knows that. But if you accept the premise that, well, but what is it? What does the number actually matter compared to what it felt like? Then it's like, well, yeah, you could have also cut a corner somewhere, and that would have lowered your time.
Mm,
All of the
that's true.
things. There's lots of ways to get a lower number. You could have ridden a bicycle. You'd be a lot faster. Maybe that takes it too far, but you take my point, I think.
Hmm. Yeah. So have you tried a pair at all, or is that still not something like you haven't gone down that road yet?
No, I haven't. And I only recently, as in a couple weeks ago, bought my first pair of shoes that has, I don't even know quite the right language, but I was really influenced by the whole minimalist movement of the aughts. And like the Born to Run book and all of that.
Sure.
And I've sort of maintained in the minimalist tradition, and it sort of seemed for a long time like it aligned with my romantic worldview and kind of like the body wants to run and let's let the body run. It all kind of aligned nicely.
Hmm.
And it's only now that I've even got a pair of shoes that have much padding. They have like the fancier new foam, and it's like a
Yeah.
cushioned kind of experience. And I did that because of a foot thing, and I'm sort of experimenting with it right now. But yeah, I'm a slow adopter, and if things are working to the way I want things to work, like I'm not one to just go out and try something radically different. Not to say that I won't try them at some point, the super shoes.
Okay. And what's your favorite type of running? Like where do you like to run the most? Are you a trail runner, more of a road runner?
What you were saying earlier about your experience of trail running really resonates for me. I think it is much more exhausting, and that plenty of that is physical, but a lot of it is mental as well. You really have to be paying attention to your feet, and everything around here is really rocky. So it's easy to step wrong on a rock and um, have it jab into your foot or to roll your ankle, anything like that. So I do enjoy getting out on the trails uh, quite a bit. Most of the time, just because it's more convenient, I'll be running around the neighborhood, that kind of thing. And I love that just as well. So I kind of go either way. I don't go on tracks. Probably won't surprise you to hear that, having read this. I don't go on tracks. I don't do intervals. I don't have any plan. I just put my shoes on and kind of head this way and turn around when it feels right.
Okay. So no, well, I guess it goes along with the whole, free from performance metrics and being worried about time and stuff. I guess, yeah. I guess my view on that is that I just want to see what I can squeeze out of myself before I start getting slower.
Yeah.
I still do kind of care about all those things, but only certain days of the week.
I hear where you're coming from, and I am drawn that way myself to a certain degree. I think what I want to do as a writer is just to kind of plant a flag in opposition to the prevailing trends of the running community, which I think becomes an obsession with these things. And so I think, I probably, as a writer, am a little, my writing persona is a bit further in the direction of the resistance to that than I actually, experience or practice in my running.
Yeah, I guess to sort of echo that, that's kind of clear. Those messages are quite clear in your essay. Are my best miles behind me? You bring up a great question in there, which is, there's a little bit of an assumption when you listen, when you hear that question, to think that your best miles are your quickest miles, i.e., your PR. Are you ever going to PR again? And I think what you do there is you bring up the whole question of, well, what are really your best miles? How do you define those? And I think that's kind of inherently the message that you were just saying there. Your best miles are not necessarily your fastest ones.
They're the ones that bring you the most
And
joy.
where this gets hard is often they are though. Like often there's something that feels so
Yeah.
good about running fast that
That's why
yeah,
you
wow.
need super shoes. You see
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
determined to convince you before
see the
the end of today's
paradoxes piling up
conversation.
here. Yeah,
No, I love the paradoxes. That's
yeah.
I think if my thinking were more ideologically straightforward, I think it would be less interesting, and I think I probably wouldn't bother to do the writing. But because
Mm.
over all these years, I continue to grapple with the contradictions inherent in trying to approach running this way, that it continues to reward the attention I've paid it.
Yeah, but I think that kind of also it reflects just like life in general. Like, as much as I'm very much like a spreadsheet person and I like things to fit in a box and be clean and clear and know what the rules are and follow them. But like, I guess the older I get, the more I realize that um, all of life is just a bunch of gray zones that you're navigating. And yeah, there are rules and some things are clear, but oftentimes the situation makes it a little bit more unclear. So I feel like that's kind of what you reflect in the writing about running in a lot of the stories like you just mentioned with the Galen Rupp thing. He was a child. When does he become an adult? So when does he become responsible for making his own decisions? Well, like it kind of depends. It's not super clear.
In terms of you just triggered me a little bit there, Scott. So in terms of with respect to talking about your best miles and the ones that bring you the most joy, is I just very quickly gone to my buried Instagram account of running haikus. So I'm just going to give you an original haiku by way of a response. It's a 757 haiku, in case you were wondering. The joy comes from speed, synergy of paradox. The speed comes from joy.
I love it. When did you write that?
Oh, years ago. Yeah. I thought I'd have a whole set, but I only got about a dozen. I ran out of inspiration. Yeah.
Or time.
Yes, too many podcasts, so little time. Uh,
Too many podcasts and being retired
yeah.
is a busy life, where everybody's got a project for you.
What have we not talked about? Steve Prefontaine. We haven't talked about, and he appears regularly. And I see you have a book with Prefontaine in the title, which is not this book, but he does appear several times. Um, was he a special runner to you, Scott?
He was, I think for a lot of runners, right? Prefontaine's pretty big,
Yeah.
but I think especially so if you grew up in Oregon. And I went to U of O as well, University of Oregon, where Prefontaine went. And the lore of his life is pretty accessible. When I was there in Eugene, it wasn't as accessible as it is now. It's really kind of taken a further push, it seems, over the last several years. But he was always there, right? And once he's there and you find out about him, his story is just so compelling, and so it would seem perfectly scripted that yeah, you kind of you look up to him, you think about him, you wonder like how he would assess you. All these things come up. But yeah, I admire him so much.
Kind of where do you sit on the Prefontaine scale of runners? Is that something that sort of occurs to you?
In the sense of like how hard do you push yourself?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, whether you respect your talent, whether you, yeah, push yourself hard. What is it about Steve Prefontaine that makes him so special? Because he didn't win lots and lots of stuff in terms of major, somebody who really my track history would come from Steve Cram would be the geographically closest guy to to me and where I was born and raised. But then in the UK with Coe and Ovett and their rivalry, that would be my era, and I would look to them and their achievements. But almost everybody my age who comes from the US talks about Steve Prefontaine.
yeah. Okay. So I think he's so accessible because his life, well, his biography was made into a few movies, two Hollywood movies and a documentary. Uh, and so his story is just kind of out there. And then what the story is, or I think what people respond to is his character, which presented itself in the way he carried himself publicly, and then most obviously in the way he ran, which was in this really courageous or brash or hubristic front running style that was just supremely
Mm.
confident, and that he never seemed to blink in that confidence. And so as a fan of his, you can kind of latch on to that confidence and draw on it yourself, or at least imagine that you can. And it helps that he was from nowhere, Coos Bay. He wasn't scared of the older, the better runners. He went right at them. And that kind of brashness is just it's impressive. There might be something unwise about it. And you can question his race strategy in terms of the results it gained him. The obvious case would be 72, where it's like, yeah, he could have easily medaled in those Olympics. But he didn't. He ran more or less his style. He went for the win and he didn't get it. And there's something in the courage of that makes for a better story than, he could have laid up and taken the bronze or maybe the silver.
Mm.
But he didn't. And then the fact of his early death, of course, where in all the ways he didn't leave any of his potential on the table in his running life, he left all of his potential on the table in his life, his life that he would have lived after the age of 24. So yeah, I mean, what a story.
Yeah, I think that all that courage is maybe it's something that I don't know. Like I know for me, I look at people like that and kind of admire that because I don't have that much courage, in anything. And like I would like to, like I'd like to be brave like that. And maybe it's for, maybe that's kind of why it speaks to so many other people. Maybe like we all kind of just wish we were that brave that we could, just put ourselves out there like that.
I think running calls to. I don't know if this is true for everybody, but um, it's certainly true for you, Scott, reading your book, and it's certainly true for me. Running, ignoring the tech, running calls out the child in you, and it calls out the wild animal in you, the just sheer animal in you. For some people that's the alpha wolf, but I think you can see that in Steve Prefontaine. You can see and so you get personally, I get what he's about when he's running. The spirit of him because he runs like a wild animal. Basically, there's no compromise. It is what it is. If I die on the track, that's so be it. I can't be any other way. And I get the link, watching him and hearing about him, I get the link through that really. The sort of wild animal type background.
Have you both read the new biography?
Nope, I haven't.
Nope.
Is that on your list to get to?
It might be. I don't know. We have a list like a Google Docs spreadsheet. Whenever somebody suggests a book, we try and put it on there. And there are just so many. It's like we thought we were going to run out of content, but obviously we're never going to run out of content.
We've deliberately tried not to look for new books in the last month because you get kid in a candy shop syndrome
Hmm.
with us, where we go, oh, look at that, it's coming out, it's coming out. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we try not to be that kind of podcast
We don't just want to cover all the books that are new.
and our readership be, our listener numbers be damned. We want to be true to ourselves and we want to deal with, people who are can't get a voice, people who are doing self-publishing, as well as Chris McDougall, Matt Fitzgerald, etc., etc. So that's the long answer for no, we haven't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So I guess we should kind of wrap this up so that Scott can get on with his day. But
Um, I'm just getting into it.
I know, well, I guess I took up too much time talking about all the controversial issues in the book
That's all good.
and defending myself for my love of the roads. Okay, so if um if people want to get a copy of the book, where's the best place? Where do you want to direct them?
oh, I don't have anywhere in particular, just wherever they usually buy their books.
So
It's
like
online.
Amazon.
Yeah, all the
Amazon's fine.
places. All the indie alternatives would be available as well.
As an Australian, I noticed that your book is entirely in green and gold. Well, green and yellow. That's kind of Australia's sporting colors. And you said at the start in the preamble, which if you go to Buy Me a Coffee, you might be able to hear the preamble, that there's a story about the color scheme.
Yeah, it's just a quick little anecdote, but I thought the cover was going to be blue and um, actually just this, but with blue instead of green and a different yellow. And I showed it to my older son, and he's himself is a bit of a Prefontaine fanatic. And he looked at it for about 2 seconds, kind of squinted and said, make it duck's colors.
Ah, okay. So it's
Ah,
Oregon. It's
And I
Oregon
said,
color.
Oregon
oh,
colors.
all
Yeah,
right, all right, let's do it.
that
So
makes
that's
sense.
all.
Awesome.
Okay, cool.
And you did write us a little note with your book that said that we probably won't hear from you for a little while after this one. So what else are you going to be up to? I mean, other than running.
Yeah.
If you're not going to be putting together books.
Well, I'll be doing books, but probably not running stuff for a while. So I have another book coming out this summer still about teaching because in my kind of official life, I teach at Montana State University, and so I have a little pedagogy book coming out in the fall, and then some other projects down the line, but more of essay and quasi academic stuff.
Teaching skills
Okay.
or teaching a particular subject?
Mostly creative writing, and then I
Okay.
teach some other kinds of classes that are on the periphery of writing. But yeah, that's sort of the sweet spot for me.
That's awesome.
If people want to follow you and what you're up to, are you a social media figure?
The figure seems like an overstatement. I have a couple of accounts that I don't post on. Um,
That
yeah,
sounds like what I was talking about.
I wouldn't recommend looking for me there.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, no, I think you just have to. I have a website which just links to different things I've done, but
Okay.
I try not to have a big online presence.
Okay. So do you want to direct people to your website? Would there also be links to the books that you wrote?
Yes, links to my books are on there, that kind of thing. It's just scottfparker.com.
Ever since I gave the intro, people have been wondering what the F stands for.
Oh, have they? Yeah,
We
what did you,
imagine they have.
you said formal, right?
Hmm?
You said it was formal to have my middle initial?
Oh, it
Mm-hmm.
sounds quite formal. I don't know.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so my middle name is Fairley, but which is my mom's maiden name. The reason I include it is because j just kind of how my writing career started. And I used to publish essays in these books that were some product from popular culture and philosophy. And they would like a TV show in philosophy or a sport in philosophy.
Hmm.
And it was just common practice in those books for people to include their middle initials. I think it just the kind of academic legacy there. And so I just kind of followed suit. And then as I started to publish more and more, it's just like, well, I guess this
Kind
is
of
my pen name.
stuck. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all.
Okay.
They just didn't want to leave it hanging. We get
Yeah,
people
no, good.
I get
It's a
people
good
hassling us from
callback.
our running club. Hey, you said you would explain that and it never came out. To which I reply, thank you for listening.
All the way to the end.
Okay, good stuff. So, summary time. Summary of How to Run, a DIY Guide for Romantics by Scott F. Parker. A nice green book with yellow writing on it. As we now know, duck's colors and not a homage to Australian sport.
You wish.
There's a little pocket book, I've sort of described it, of about 100 pages. The first part of the title, as we've talked about, is somewhat misleading, but the second part is probably much more accurate. The A DIY Guide for Romantics. You need to be a little bit romantic and you need to figure that you're going to do it yourself to some extent. It's a very easy read in terms of reading because there's short essays and poems and little bites. So easy to read, but not necessarily easy to absorb because it tends to lead you to think a bit. For example, about why you run and why you feel what you feel sometimes when you run. So, it gets you engaged with those sorts of things. So be prepared for that. Be open to that. Some of the poems try to capture the spirit of running, if it can be captured, I think. Um, and to that extent, some of the poems just sort of accept that you can't really capture the spirit of running. Running is just running. I think that actually there's a poem called that, I think, in there. Running is just running or something like that. In summary, if you run and sometimes you feel sort of childlike while you're running, or sometimes you feel like a wild animal while you're running. I often feel like a wolf, an increasingly old wolf. Um, this book might have something for you. This might be a book that speaks to you.
I guess.
Don't
Yeah.
laugh at the old wolf thing, Liz. I'm being
It
poetic. You're
yes.
going, yeah,
Well,
you're old.
yeah. Well, I mean, you don't show it in your running, that's for sure, because you're
Cheers.
still not old enough to for me to leave you in my dust. So I don't know. I guess I'll only add a few other things. So, the book is not, I mean, you probably got the idea, but it's not like a cover to cover kind of reading book. But of course, I like to read cover to cover because how else do you keep track of what you read and what you didn't? So, that's how I would read it. But you don't have to because everything is completely unrelated. Or, I mean, I guess some of the ideas do get repeated, but they're not like the stories are independent. I'd recommend, I mean, this book proves that you should always read the back cover so that you know what the book is about after you read the title, because you don't want to read the title and then start reading the book and find out that that maybe it's not what you were expecting. So the title is How to Run, but the back of the book, you know, it says right away that this is not like an instruction manual for how to run. It's something different. And who would this be good for? I guess I would say that to read this book, I think you kind of need to be a long time runner and already have a love for the sport. And I think that type of person will enjoy reading all the thoughts about running and understand the nuance of it. Not that somebody else can't like the book as well. It's just that I think sometimes when runners start running, they don't all usually start because they love it. A lot of people will start because, they want to lose weight or but it's sort of like running is a chore. And I think that in that case, this book might not be for you.
But if you're listening to this podcast, you're not one of those non-running people,
Yeah,
so this book
probably
is
not.
obviously for you. Outro time.
Outro time. You can do the outro because we won't get one star that way.
Liz is on a mission to get a 1-star review from Spotify. Thank you for listening to another episode of Running Book Reviews. A big thank you to Scott for spending time with us today and for providing copies of his book. If you'd like to leave us any feedback about how we can improve our podcast, or you'd like to suggest a book that you'd like us to review in future episodes, please leave us a comment on social media. We are Running Book Reviews on Facebook and Instagram, and on Twitter or X, we are reviews_running. Please also follow us on social media to find out about new episodes, or you can just subscribe on your favorite streaming platform. If you've been listening for a while and you want to help us out, there are a few ways. If you're enjoying the podcast, spread the word. Send a link to your running friend or partner or anybody who you think might appreciate this. If you're not enjoying the podcast, then send us a note and tell us why. But thanks for bearing right to the end of the podcast, which is where this notice comes out. Please, if you would, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts if this is how you listen to the podcast, or you can rate us on Spotify out of 5 stars. We're also on Buy Me a Coffee, and there are a few snippets and outtakes and various articles and written bits and little audio bits and photographs. I still go back and look at Liz's wedding photographs where she's getting married in running shoes, which is it's always fun to look at that every so often.
Yeah, your wife was actually like, are you actually going to wear those with your dress? And I was like, yeah.
People still don't believe it. I have to show them the photographs every so often. That's all for today from Running Book Reviews. Bye for now.
Bye.